because Halo Infinite has been delayed, and that is a problem. That was a weird day, by the way, because it was like the news got out there, and then people on Twitter were like before it actually got out there, people on Twitter were like, oh man, like Jeff, you said, there's too many games coming out this year.
Yeah, I was going to go upstairs, go to the bathroom. I work down here in my basement, and as I'm walking up the steps, I get a text message, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I read right back down to my computer and start writing the story. And then 10 minutes later, they made the announcement. So
there were some people behind the scenes talking about it being delayed, and then they made the announcement. And that was like the internet just like caught on fire right then and there, because that is the game that was supposed to launch next to Series X. They said, I would say, what, like 5 or 6 times that's the game that would show what the Series X is capable of doing. So here we are now with Halo Infinite being pushed to next year, and it is an odd situation, but it seemed that they even mentioned that COVID plays a part in it. As Nate, you have said several times that games are being pushed more and more because of that, and Microsoft, I guess, moved a lot of their stuff. Like I think everyone got moved to remote work. I don't think anyone goes into the offices anymore, unless you're like maybe at the top at different times, but they don't have individual people going in there for like developing or anything anymore. So, I mean, we saw Xbox 2020 disappear. That stopped. They were like, we can't do that anymore. And now Halo Infinite gets pushed. So the Series X is in like a weird spot. It's going to launch this holiday. We assume still, and it won't have Halo.
Could be the X flop.
And the problem we're running into is the pricing too. That could be higher than people were estimating at first now. Like, what if that's like, I know that it's like rumor territory with that, because we're talking about Monster Energy Drink, which didn't Monster have like massive promotions with cans and stuff for Halo Infinite as well?
Mm-hmm. It was tied together.
Yeah, like that. That's
that Series X and Halo Infinite. Yeah,
like that's tough too. Like how many I guess companies were just relying on Halo to launch this holiday, and now it's like it might not even be early 2021. That might be like
I don't think it's going to be early
summer probably.
Yeah,
like,
it's a year away, I think.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's gonna fall into like August or something, or September.
Probably. Yeah, we're probably looking at.
I mean, you got that gives them a chance to to reestablish the narrative with E3, and then you say Halo's also coming, but now we're talking about even more games than we talked about last time, and now Halo's here and it's good, and I know they're trying to like really figure this out to make sure that people aren't quite as upset, but yeah, I mean, they don't have anything at launch, so what are you gonna do?
I will say a lot of us watched the gameplay they showed, and we came here and talked about it the following, like that week, and a lot of us were like, something was wrong with that build, like something was wrong. That literally might have just been like what they had ready to go, and it was like now I'm like, okay, yeah, we were probably right on with that, because I mean, you don't delay it if it's like good to go. Like
they took a gamble. They basically went to the July event and they rolled the dice, and they said, if public reception is good, we're going to launch it as planned, and we're going to patch it in. Like they said, we're going to add ray tracing and everything. We all knew the game was coming in hot as soon as they came out with that information of, we have to update this game. We're going to add in all that new lighting, all these upgraded textures and stuff later. And they took that gamble, and the public reception was negative. So they had to sit down and they had to have that meeting and say, what are we going to do? Do we delay it and we have to survive those 8 months with the system until we get the game out? Or do we still launch it hot and hope people are okay with it? And they made the right decision. Delay the game as long as it takes, give it the development time it needs, make it good. And, you're going to have to start writing checks. You're going to have to secure some timed exclusives. You're going to have to get some new services and games on Game Pass. You're going to have to create value for those first 6 to 8 months, because Halo Infinite is the only cross-gen game from Xbox Game Studios that's coming to the Xbox One. Come 2022, everything's Xbox Series X exclusive. Well, so they're going to be in a great spot in 16 months.
Well, 12
it's going to be brutal.
12 months from now, right? So a year from now, let's say they're checking things out and they're like, man, not a lot of people are playing the Xbox One right now. People have moved on to the Series S or the Series X. Like this time next year, do you think that during planning, do they start to drop that cross-platform support? Like,
I think it comes down to I think they need to even if people aren't playing their Xbox Ones, you don't always want your Netflix, but you probably have your Netflix account all the time. They need to keep giving people reasons to subscribe to Game Pass on their Xbox One, even if they aren't using it, because that's the real reason all of this is happening. Someone mentioned this to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. It's like, if you're going to continue supporting the old system, it's because you can't tell people, oh, all these games going forward are only going to be on Xbox Series X, but also please keep subscribing to Game Pass for eventually when you do decide to upgrade. They need to be convinced that, oh no, we're going to have that support, and then eventually when we do get the better system, all that stuff that was already working will just be better. But yeah, because of Game Pass, they kind of have to continue to promise support for quite some time. But if they're looking at the metrics and they see enough people upgrade quickly, or if they or people really are just continuing to subscribe without even looking, maybe they will stop supporting. But going forward for a while, they need to.
Because I was curious because Nate has the VCR over there, and I'm wondering if they're building out Halo Infinite, and they're like, this VCR is it's struggling bad with this game right now. Because we've seen what the Xbox One S with Anthem get it was 20 frames when Digital Foundry was showing it at times. It was that was the obvious system that was struggling the whole time, and I wonder about that if they're like, what if we didn't have to have the Xbox One VCR as part of Halo Infinite right now, a year from now? What if it doesn't come out till next November? At that point, we're going another holiday cycle.
Yeah,
a free-to-play multiplayer. There's no way they're going to want it on everything. It's going to run on really basic PCs. So they're going to want a free.
What if the multiplayer? Because multiplayer generally tends to be less demanding because they'll knock the visuals down, they'll do all this stuff. What if the free-to-play multiplayer is on all this stuff, but the campaign is exclusive to the Series X?
But didn't they say that the free-to-play multiplayer was exclusive to the Series X?
No,
I don't think they did. They might 120 frame.
No,
I've read those articles multiple times. They didn't.
They said it's free on Series X.
Right.
Yeah,
but I think
that's
Series X.
I think that's branding. It's just that they're trying to be like, Halo Infinite's coming everywhere. Get the free multiplayer on Series X. They're just trying to remind you, please buy our console. Please, we really need the money.
That sounds right.
So they also talked about how they had thought about releasing Halo in parts, and
Great
I do
idea.
What if they labeled the free-to-play multiplayer as something different and Infinite was just a campaign, and they released the multiplayer this holiday to go alongside the Series X?
Yeah.
That I would have actually been okay with that if it was the multiplayer, because let's face it, Sean's not going to play the campaign.
No.
I will play the campaign multiple times, but Sean has already told me.
I haven't been a Halo campaign since ODST. They're trash. I don't like Halo campaigns. They're no upgrades. They're just boring. The multiplayer is great though.
Damn, Halo 1's campaign's great.
It was great back then. It's just not great now. The campaigns are
Halo
boring.
Reach is pretty good. I like
Dude,
that
Master
Halo Reach
Chief
was
is
good too,
space Jesus. Master Chief died for your sins. How dare you slim?
The multiplayer is so much better. The multiplayer
Halo
is so
5,
much better
Halo
than the
5
single
had one of the
players.
worst campaigns I've ever
Yeah, you could skip
Okay.
Halo 5. That's fine.
Yeah.
You can skip
Halo
Halo
5
5
was
was
garbage. I mean, I've played them all. I just don't beat them.
Yeah. So I do wonder about that if they had been like, you know what, maybe we will push this free to play model because it's free to play and they just released it on Game Pass and maybe it comes out with 4 maps and they're like, we'll add more later or something. Maybe they just didn't want to do that with Halo. I don't know. That might have at least softened the blow of a Halo Infinite delay.
Now they need to figure something else out to soften the blow now. So who knows? But that they need to figure something.
Launch the beta for Halo. There you go. Do that.
They probably will do that. Yeah.
I've been sort of passing this idea around, but I wanted to pitch it to you guys. What if they tried to do some sort of like what if they called it Halo Early Access or maybe Halo First Contact or some cringy thing, but it is basically Halo Early Access? What if they just are very, very clear? What if they just show us a roadmap and they're like, hey, like you're getting, like you said, 4 multiplayer maps in November, you get half the campaign in March. Like, what if it becomes the biggest Halo ever, but over the course of 12 months, like 4 big updates
But
instead
why?
of just. Because honestly, they need people to buy it. Like honestly, the thing is they need people
I get
to buy
it for
the
that,
console.
but that sets a bad precedent
yeah.
for anything happening in the future. Because all these developers could be like, why finish the game when we can start getting money now and continue to work on it?
That was our fear about Game Pass in the first place, is that they would push unfinished stuff. So part of me is like, okay, it's good that they didn't go that route, because that would just confirm what I believe to be true, which is that if the game's not ready, they'll be like, well, it's a subscription service and they're already paying, so just push it out there. They instead delayed it. Because they could have plastered Halo Infinite all over Game Pass and it's not a finished product and they would have still got signups. But it's good to a degree to see them delay it and care about the quality of. I mean, that's their IP. That's it right there.
343 needs an actual win with Halo.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Here's the real question: Why did it take this long for them to delay the game? Because because hold on, because the creative director left, right? It's been a while, like 12 months ago now. There's been some high-profile people leave the company that have all been, in the media. We know that the game has suffered development hell, and it's everything that we've heard. It's just been a bit of a mess. Microsoft is great at mitigating, those types of stories when they kind of start to come out, but they're very, very quick to just say, business as usual. It's coming out this holiday. It's going to be great. So why did it come to this point? Literally the 13th hour that they've finally turned around and said, you know what, shit, we may have to delay this game because it's not ready.
Well, there's voices inside the entire time saying we have to delay this, and they're not just good at mitigating it externally, they're good at mitigating that sort of thing internally, like, no, we'll figure this out. Like, if you are a team player, you're going to push through and you're going to figure this out and you're going to get it done. And then those voices are still saying, we need to delay it. And then you get the backlash, and you could say, you're one of those voices saying we need to delay it. Now you're like, here's all this evidence of everyone agreeing with my perspective and everyone that's backing me up saying, here are many reasons why this game's not ready. And they can tell just from the little gameplay snippet that we showed. So please listen to me. And now those voices have won out because of public perception.
Yeah, I was a little confused because there were people who were completely fine with that, like what they were shown, and I was a little off with that because I'm looking at it and I'm like, this doesn't it looked like they played it on an Xbox One and not a Series X or anything, or even high-end PC.
I was okay with it because my assumption was that was like captures from like February, because remember that was what they were supposed to show at E3, right? So I just felt like that was a pretty early build of the game that they were showing off, and the graphics looked like absolute garbage, but the gameplay was on point, and the gameplay I was pretty happy with. So I just kind of felt like it wasn't that far off, where it needed to be, and I just felt like, the statements that we heard after that came out from 343 saying, this game is getting a lot more polished than what you guys have seen. I felt like that was enough, for me to think, well, they've got a handle on this, but obviously that was not the case.
But you know what? It's fine because Phil Spencer's still there. Daddy Phil is going to save the day like he's saved every year for the Xbox brand and made it.
Yeah, that myth making has always been out of hand, right? It's never been like he's good at talking frankly, and I think that endears him to a lot of people. But I've never been convinced by this idea that he has such a firm grasp on what needs to happen with Xbox. I still feel like he is a bit back on his heels. Like, they have an idea, they have a strategy going forward. They do believe in Game Pass, that he's being aggressive with that stuff. But in terms of like winning over the audience that is like watching this podcast and everyone who's on it, I still think he's not exactly sure how to go about doing that. But when they say things like, I feel really good about our upcoming showcase, and then we see it and we're like, why were you feeling that good about it? We're different people. He has that. I think he probably, like, it's hard for him to understand exactly what we want from him. And I've always felt that way.
Hold on though. Is it him, or is it a bunch of company yes men feeding him what he wants to hear? You know what I'm saying?
Possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But after 6 years plus, I mean, you should kind of see the writing on the wall that, hey, maybe these people aren't, that I've surrounded myself with aren't the ones helping. Because and one thing I've heard a bunch of people say that I found very interesting. I was on Mooch's podcast last night because evidently I felt like doing a podcast 3 days in a row. One of the things that, because he had a couple diehard Xbox people in there. I believe one of them was actually called Xbot. But one of their things,
name very unique,
right? Kid Smooth is gonna send him a DCMA. But they were saying, Game Pass is gonna help sell the Series X in lieu of Halo. And to that I say, if that was the case, then why was the Xbox One not very successful? And one of the retorts was, well, it wasn't there at the launch of the system. Okay, that's fine. But why was the Xbox One? Why did it never reach, huge levels of success if Game Pass was going to get? To me, Game Pass is something to keep people on Xbox systems, but I don't really feel like it necessarily brings in a lot of new people to the Xbox brand, because if that was the case, then wouldn't the Xbox One have been more popular?
Well, can I say this about the Xbox?
You can say
One,
anything you want.
All things considered, the Xbox One, if you look at the first party lineup and you look at what they had, it did okay. What, 50 million?
Here's the thing.
You know?
I like some of the Xbox One exclusives. Rise. I liked Rise. I didn't play Rise until this year, and I was like, wow, this is a pretty decent game. This is why do people shit on this game? Sunset Overdrive.
It's not good.
No, it's good. Quantum Sunset Overdrive.
So why do people say that? Because it's not good, but
like Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break, these were very good, enjoyable games.
Horizon 4.
Yeah, you got Halos on there. You got Gears, like
Crimson Dragon.
It's very it's very bizarre to me, and I just feel like
you're right.
I mean,
Rare Replay.
Let's take a retrospective. Let's take a retrospective of the Xbox One versus the PS4 launch.
Yeah, the
Xbox
Kinect
had Rise, Dead Rising, versus Knack and Killzone.
It was
overall, you probably give the edge to the Xbox One in terms of actual launch.
$400 versus $500.
Yeah, $100
price.
more.
Kinect killed the Xbox One in those early days.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. It never recovered. It actually never recovered from the first conference when they said you can't play used games. It didn't matter that they clarified.
But also 400, like when PlayStation came out and said 400. This is why they're holding off on price. Like Sony has always done this. This is how Sony's won each generation, and they know this. Is like you go back to the Saturn, and Saturn's like this really expensive box to make, and Sega's like, yeah, we're gonna sell it for $399, and then Sony comes out and the one number they say is $299, and then friggin' Sega's like, okay, I guess we're gonna cut the price and we're gonna lose a bunch of money, and then Sony's like, we make this box so cheap, we're gonna go to $199. Like they could just keep cutting the price, and then they easily beat Sega, and then they did the same thing to Xbox One with $400 versus $500. And by the time that Microsoft was able to match that, it was too late. It was definitely too late. And now they're trying to do the same thing right now, but both companies are trying to do it, and we're not going to find out the price till the fucking 10 days before, maybe.
Because
now
that's good though, because I want it to be fair. I don't want Sony can't just be coming out and undercutting everybody. Like it's like put out the price that you're going to put. You know what I'm saying? Like they're playing chicken back and forth. Like,
they should just write it down, put it in an envelope, and have someone else help it out.
Stop banking on that crap to win. Like, put out your price, and then that's that.
Man, it's the biggest thing that matters.
Why,
they're going to play on it.
Yeah, why can't they do that, OJ? That's
what I'm saying. Like, they're always waiting, and Microsoft's not going to sit there and wait for them this time. Everyone's saying, oh, people think they need to say the price. Well, no, they're not going to, because Sony always be doing that crap. So if I'm at Microsoft, I'm not going to sit there and say a price and then get that happen to me again. Like, have that happen over and over in the course of history. So that's the reason why we don't got a price. It's like we got to wait.
We are 3 months out from these systems launching.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
Supposedly launched.
Allegedly.
Sony wouldn't stop doing that, and then we'd have prices by now.
And the crazy thing is, like we just established, the Xbox One launch lineup was substantially better than the Series X launch lineup.
I mean, at this point, we think the Xbox Series X might launch the first week of November. That very well could happen.
But GT, I think that point that you're making though just speaks to the games not mattering that much at launch. They just don't. Like with launch games, the launch period, the first year of a system, we don't really remember this stuff. It's all the games that come after that, and those systems in that first year are going to just continue to sell based on the promises of the future. That's absolutely what happened with the PS4. PS4 didn't have a lot of great games for a long time because Sony didn't think the system was going to sell, but they still sold the promise. But when it started selling, they're like, oh man, we got to invest in this stuff for 2017 and 2018. And then they really delivered on those things, and now people have a really fond memory of that entire generation. But it was kind of grim there at the beginning.
So
but the point is, it didn't matter though, and so. Is it going to matter for Microsoft? I think it might matter a little bit more, but if they can live up, if they can keep promising stuff, if they come out and they do start talking about Perfect Dark or whatever, and they show reasons to actually get excited about that, and they have other surprises, and they're willing to continuing to spend money, people might forget about Halo pretty quickly, and until it comes out, and then all of a sudden it is better and it delivers. They can get out of this. Is basically the point here. We'll just have to see if they can actually.
I gotta spend some money.
One thing that I think has to be factored into, especially the first year for both systems, is the impact that COVID-19 is going to have. From economics and such, like you're going to sell out of your launch units. That's a given. In the first 2 to 3 months, you're probably going to sell well. But what are we looking at come March 2021 in terms of hardware sales? That's when economic impacts could be hitting people's wallets a little harder. And all of a sudden, the luxury item of a video game console is probably, it's not going to be in the forefront of your mind. The launch hype is over. If Sony's not coming out with any big games, Microsoft is still void of Halo and, first-party exclusives, all of a sudden that wait doesn't seem that bad. And now we're getting into holiday 2021, or in the promise of 2022 from Microsoft of some of their big games like Forza, Fable, Avowed, and such. We might be looking at almost a delayed launch of sorts from these consoles, where those first 12 months are going to be minimal, but they're going to find life in those second and third year, because we really don't know how COVID-19 is going to impact these launches. I mean, and not just from stock, just how the perception from the public is going to be received.
So
Rent
two things.
or Xbox.
Today on stream, I was looking up when they revealed the price of the last, every generation of consoles. And for the last 20 years, they've usually revealed the price of the console at E3.
Yeah, we had the Xbox Scorpio got announced there, and then we saw the price.
Yep. And then same with PS2. I looked it up specifically for PS2 today. And something that's been different is, okay, so we're getting the price later. I do think, though, that something that's going to kind of change this next generation is the hyper focus on backwards compatibility. I do think a lot of gamers, if they already have the money laying around, they're going to be more willing to get the PlayStation 5 and Series X, even if it doesn't have launch games, because it still plays their huge existing catalog. And I think that's something that hasn't really existed in the same way. It's the big reason a lot of people bought the PS2, even though there weren't a lot of PS2 games, is because, hey, it plays all my PS1 games. Okay. And they said even back then, remember, they used to say, this will play your PlayStation 1 games better. If you look at the PlayStation 2 menus, it says smoothing and quick load. So I think it's going to be the same thing. The big selling point is going to be plays your PS4 games better. And also, I promise we're making PS5 games.
When you get a new graphics card... Yeah, when you get a new graphics card, what's the first thing you do? You don't play a new game. You play the old games that you know are really familiar with, so you can see how much better it runs.
Yep.
People are going to do the same thing here.
I mean, and
you run a
the Xbox Series X would probably be the advantage there with the Game Pass, and that they're already promising, Gears 5, we're going to add ray tracing, and all these new features are going to increase the resolution, frame rate. They're going to add HDR to original Xbox games. Microsoft's approach to backwards compatibility of the Series X is nothing short of astonishing. Whereas Sony is still wishy-washy. Some of your games are going to play in boost mode, others won't. Any game released after July is going to be backwards compatible, so you can play Ghost on it. We haven't committed to anything about The Last of Us Part 2. We'll probably just remaster it. They've been all over the place with their message, and Microsoft is, whatever game you have in the Xbox One right now, you can play on your Series X, and you're going to get some, advantages. That's a nice message. It's probably the best marketing Microsoft has done for their platform, because ever since then, they've, continued to fall over their own feet.
Control reiterated the importance of actually. I know people like to jump all over smart. I can't remember the name of it right now. Smart delivery. And they're like, oh, it's a rebranded thing that we've had forever. But it's like something like Control Ultimate Edition comes along, and everyone's like, what's the deal here? But with certain games, smart delivery is putting pressure on developers to actually follow through and make it cheap or free to upgrade. So yeah, I agree.